the truth is, for almost all of humanity, the life that people are living is a mental state. The life that people are living is what's happening in their mind, and they think it's happening in the world. And so whenever circumstances or situations in the world occur that are disturbing or upsetting, the mind goes crazy. The mind, what the voice in the head says is, that's wrong, that shouldn't be happening, I don't like it. And then the feelings follow that. The feelings are frustration, anger, disappointment, sadness, all of those things that people are familiar with after last Tuesday. So it's a real important thing to understand and realize that the suffering that you're experiencing is not being caused by what you think is causing it. It's being caused by the reaction that's occurring in your mind. And your mind is a survival operation. And anything that happens in the world that's inconsistent with your beliefs or your understandings is a threat, right? Is a threat. And so you react to it. I don't like it, it's wrong, it shouldn't be happening, right? Well, there's a little bit of a problem with that. It is happening. So once something happens, and the position you take in relationship to what's happening is that it shouldn't be happening, and therefore you begin to resist it and reject it and work against it, right? That's called suffering. And it never, ever works. Where shocks come from is the mind. Where upsets occur are the mind. And they come from and they occur in the mind in relationship to two things: the conditioning of the personality, right? And the construct, the operational construct of the mind, which is survival. And anything that's different than the way we believe it should be and the way we want it to be, when it's different than the way we believe it should be and the way we want it to be, we feel threatened and upset. And in the practice of meditation and in the practice of the teachings, what the teachings tell us to practice in meditation, first of all, is to develop our ability to pay attention. Why? First of all, because most people can't pay attention. They believe they can, and if you go to practice meditation, you find out very shortly that what you thought you could pay attention was not true. What you discover that what you called paying attention was having your attention taken, right? So you think if you're watching TV, you're paying attention. No, the TV is taking your attention. If you're not sure about that, wait until the commercial comes on. Commercial's designed to make sure it takes your attention. It will do things in the commercial that have nothing to do with the product. You ever notice that? Progressive insurance has nothing to do with the product. All they care about is that you're watching the screen, and then they'll say progressive, 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 progressive. Right? So the reality that most people don't understand is that you're not able to be responsible for your own mind. And the reason you're not able to be responsible for your own mind is because the way you got to figure it out, the way you believe it is that what upsets your mind is the world. You know? What upsets your mind is the world. Therefore, when the world upsets your mind, you have to do something to stop the world. You have to do something to change the world. You have to do something to control the people that are upsetting you, right? This is a preoccupation that all of humanity is involved in, isn't it? Isn't it? You know, I mentioned here that most people's lives are about the pursuit of happiness, right? One of the things the Zen teacher said in his talk last night that I hadn't considered, most people's lives are about the pursuit of happiness, and if you get in the way of my pursuit of happiness, I'll kill you. That's called war, isn't it? Yeah. Isn't it? So we usually think that we're pursuing happiness, you know, by getting what we want, and that could be just buying things we don't need, you know, all this stuff. Getting what we want, have more sex, buy the things I want, you know, look good, you know, get people to admire me. That's called the pursuit of happiness, right? But we seldom understand that that pursuit also involves the fact that if anybody around you in your life behaves in a way that occurs to you to be a threat, then you attack that because they're in the way of your happiness. Yeah? So this pursuit of happiness can be a very destructive process. Right? And especially given that the pursuit of happiness is a dream. It's a dream. And the reason it's a dream is because what people take to be the source of their happiness was never, ever the source of their happiness. Right? But most people never find that out because they never stop long enough and sit still long enough and allow the mind to calm down long enough and allow the body to relax long enough in order to start to see things as they actually are. And it's a real eye-opener to see things as they actually are, because when you see things as they actually are, you discover that when you're not thinking and you're relaxed, you're happy. It's not out there. It's not something that you have to do. It's not something that you have to change to be happy. Happiness is the natural state. And the natural state is the state of awareness when the awareness is not contaminated by the condition of the mind. When the awareness is not contaminated by the thoughts and feelings that keep occurring in the mind, you know, as the mind is processing what's happening and producing reactions to it all the time. Yeah. So if you don't wake up and realize that unless you train your mind, unless you take responsibility for what goes on there, your life will continue to be suffering. And your death will be tragic, and your death will be horrible. Right? So if you want to vaccinate yourself against the terror of death, imagine your death. Imagine your own death. Start practicing dying. Start practicing being aware of the fact that this physical thing is going to die. Right? And if in the process of practicing meditation, you start to catch on to what you're doing, and what I mean by that, you start to catch on to the idea that when I move my attention from the thinking activity over to being aware of the body breathing, I am now experiencing reality, albeit briefly and albeit it will bounce back again. But if I keep doing this, if my meditation practice is a practice that I do consistently, over time I will start to have more of an experience of the awareness watching the body breathe, so that it'll begin to occur to me that there's a there there. There's a reality there, and the awareness that's watching the body breathe can be counted on because it's real, it's true, and it never changes. On the other hand, the personality, the thought activity that is the voice in your head called the personality, changes all the time. Changes all the time. Can't be counted on. Right? It's very irrational, right? That will turn on you. It'll turn on anybody that threatens it, and it'll even turn on you if you act inconsistent with the voice in your head or your beliefs or your expectations. So this is critical. This is a critical reality that has a direct relationship to whether or not your life is meaningful, whether or not your life is an experience of well-being and happiness and peace, or whether your life is an ongoing struggle in which you're coping with situations and circumstances that are beyond your control. The mind is not beyond your control. It's with you at all times, right? But most people don't know they have a mind. They're experiencing being a mind. Huh? They're experiencing being the voice in their head, not having a voice in their head, right? And so by experiencing being the mind, what that causes is that you then take the situations that are happening to be the cause of your experience instead of the mental state, because you believe you are the mental state. But when you discover your true nature, right? Now I am not the mental state, I am aware of the mental state the same way as I was aware of the body breathing. And if you continue to do this practice such that you experience yourself more and more consistently to be the awareness instead of the thinking activity, then it will occur to you, you will realize at some point that you've struck gold. And the reason you'll realize you struck gold is because if you can relocate your identity to be the awareness that's aware of the body breathing when you're practicing meditation, over time through practice, if you can relocate your identity to be that awareness, right? That awareness that's watching the body breathe will be the same awareness that watches the body die. Did you notice he said that last night?
Yes.
That's the heart of the matter. That's why we're practicing meditation for freedom. From what? From identifying with something that is temporary, that's going to die, called the body. Freedom from identifying with something that's not real, called the voice in my head, personality. And get yourself located in relationship to reality. Get yourself located in relationship to the way things really are, not the way you think they are, not the way you believe they are, not the way people told you they were, and those people that told you that things were that way are suffering. And everybody that told them that things were that way is suffering. And everybody around the world that believes in the personality as a reality and believes that what they were taught as a child is the truth is suffering. So if you're sitting here right now listening to this, then it means that it's your turn to wake up. Otherwise you wouldn't be here. Right? Everything is happening according to a major plan. Everything is happening according to the nature of God, the nature of that which is beyond concepts, the nature of reality which is beyond concepts. Doesn't matter what you call it, the source, God, reality. Right? That's what's happening. And so as long as you attribute, as long as you consider yourself to be separate from that, as long as you consider yourself to be the doer, as long as you consider yourself to be the thinker, you're in the way. You're in the way. Yeah. Because what you consider yourself to be doesn't exist, and what you consider yourself to be shows up as the voice in your head that's constantly analyzing and talking about what's happening, right? And constantly having you be in conflict with what's occurring. Like my friend in Australia says, and I find myself repeating this more and more often, right? If you don't think about it, is there anything wrong right now? Huh? Just think, how about if you could experience being in the experience of not thinking all the time? Would there be anything wrong? And you are in the experience of not thinking when you're the awareness of thinking, aren't you? Yeah, so you're free from the effect of thinking. And you can look at the thinking, and you can look at the emotions, and you can look at the physical sensations. And because now you've started to get yourself educated in the truth, you can look at them and see when they're crazy. You can look at them and see when those thoughts are, and those reactions, and that mental activity is a function of your conditioning, and that conditioning was mistaken. It was mistaken. So that's what there is to practice in meditation. The practice of meditation is intended to practice what is real and what is true. That's what the practice is. And that's why if you just practice meditation, you're going to try it, don't bother. That's not meditation. Meditation is a practice that you do every single day over time. And if you don't do it every single day over time, you're not practicing meditation. If you were on your deathbed right now, would you be interested in watching TV? You know what I mean? Would you give a shit about the politics? You know? Would you care if somebody came in the room and called you a name? No. Because when you get to that place, when you're on your deathbed, you get real. You get real. Well, why do you have to wait till then? You know, it's like the teacher said last night, die now. Don't wait to die, die now. You can die now, all right? Because the only thing that's going to die is something that was never actually real. The only thing that's going to die is something that was never actually alive. That's why I named the book that I wrote, Dying to Live. Because if you die now, you will live a life that's alive instead of a life that's happening in your mind. How do you die now? The way you die now is to see that what you take to be you isn't real. So how do you have something that's not real die? If you see it's not real, it's dead, isn't it? So let that happen. If you let yourself see that your personality isn't real and that the only way it exists is through thinking in the mind, right? And if you look away from that thought, is there a personality? No. Is there anything? No, there's nothing. Right? When you're not thinking, if you could allow yourself to experience not thinking, by focusing, you know, when we focus on the breath, at least what that does is eliminates a lot of thinking, right? Because at least you're just focusing on one thing, right? And even though you're not completely empty of thought, if you focus on the breath, it'll eliminate a lot of thinking, so you'll get spaces. You'll get some spaces that you can start to see what's there without thought. You can start to get an education about the truth. But you need teaching and guidance, right? Because you'll go back into being stupid. Stupidity is the most common experience of humanity. Yeah. Although most of humanity wouldn't like to hear that, but it is the case, because if you allow what's occurring in your mind to upset you, you're being stupid, because it doesn't have to be that way. You have something to say about what's going on in your mind. You have something to say about whether or not you believe what it's saying. You have something to say about whether or not it's true. You have something to say about whether that voice in your head is you. But you have nothing to say about that until you start to practice sitting still and being quiet consistently, so that you can begin to see what I just said instead of just take it on as another belief. If you take it on as another belief, it's not powerful. You know, because as soon as something happens that contradicts that, you're confused again. So the only thing that works is the truth. Why? Because it never changes. The only thing that works is the truth. Why? Because it's always consistent, it's always real, it works when you apply it. Right? It works when you apply it. And so if you understand that the mind is an upset machine, right? You practice presenting it with the things it would get upset about, right? So it can get exposed to that and get used to it and stop reacting. I noticed on my YouTube, for some reason, on my YouTube, I started getting, you know how things show up, the things that you click on, they start to show up consistent, right? So I started to have videos show up from India of dead people. I started to have videos show up of India of people sitting in meditation postures. Obviously, these were people who were practitioners, you know, sitting in meditation postures. And then somebody coming over and picking them up, putting them on like a little trailer type thing, and moving them somewhere else, and then putting some kind of lotion over their body and putting some wood around them and setting it on fire. I saw one today. There was a guy lying in a public place. There was a person lying in a public place with like a sheet lying there, and another guy walks up to him and kicks him a few times and realizes he's dead. And he just rolls him up in the sheet, picks him up, brings him over, puts him in the back of a car, and takes him away. You should watch this every day, because someday you're going to be that. You know, the meditation masters used to send their students to the corporal grounds. They used to send their students to the grounds in India where they would take the bodies of the people whose family didn't have the money to cremate them, so they just go and drop the body off on these grounds where everybody takes and drops the dead bodies off, and at night the dogs come and the vultures come and eat the bodies. Meditation masters used to send their students and tell them to go stay there for 2 weeks and meditate, day and night. Why? That sounds crazy, right? Because one of the things you do for people who have strong reactions to things, right, is to expose them to what they're afraid of. It's called exposure therapy. If you're afraid to fly, any therapist will tell you, my work with you is to prepare you to fly, which means you're going to get on a plane and fly, right? And that's going to be the cure, because exposing yourself to what you're afraid of is going to be the cure, right? So that's why, if you're smart, that's why if you're awake, you imagine your own death. You imagine your own death. That's what happened with Ramana Maharshi. He imagined his own death because he was terrified of dying. He imagined his own death. He laid down on the floor and imagined dying, really let himself imagine dying. Most people wouldn't have the audacity to do that, right? I mean, really lie on the floor and imagine the breath stops, the body gets cold. He really did a good job of that because he woke up and realized his true nature right after that. He realized his true nature. But one of the things that he taught other people is that I am not unusual. I am not an exception to the rule. Any one of you can realize your true nature. Any one of you can die now. Any one of you can let go of your attachment to the physical body and let go of your attachment to the idea that you're a personality. You can do that now and start living a life as awareness. This is a life that will have peace. This is a life that will have fulfillment. This is a life that will have happiness and contentment. And it's available right now. It's always been available, right? But most people are too busy trying to get their life to work, right? To stop and settle down and sit quietly and allow themselves to discover that it's already working. It's already working. This is the way it's supposed to work. This is the way it's supposed to happen.
So that enlightenment will change your personality. I mean, it should.
Well, your personality is in a constant state of change anyway, isn't it? So it's not that it'll change your personality, it'll change how it changes. Instead of it changing to be more crazy, it'll start going sane. You know, your personality will start going sane. You'll start realizing that you don't have to be upset. You start realizing that, you know, when this stuff plays in the mind, right, you don't have to identify with it. You can just watch it play. And if you watch it play, it loses its reality. And if you watch it play and you don't identify with it and you don't act on it, right, it loses its reality because you're not involved anymore, and it'll eventually die out, and then there'll be just more calm, more quiet, more peace. That's what's available, but it's not free lunch. So even this class, you know, one of the things David said, one of the things the Zen teacher said last night that caught my attention is coming to any meetings of truth, attending any place where people are talking about the truth, is a very smart thing to do, because you will continually get more exposure to reality by doing that. And by attending this class consistently, you're demonstrating your commitment and your interest and your understanding of reality. Because this is a place where the truth is spoken, right? And there aren't many places where the truth is spoken. Unfortunately, not even in churches. Not even in churches. If you understand the truth, you can begin to experience Christianity or Catholicism or Judaism or, you know, Islamic or Sufism. You can experience all those things and understand where they came from, and understand that you can enjoy and celebrate the Mass. You can enjoy and celebrate. But if you start to recognize that while your mind may be contaminated, that doesn't mean you are. And you can start to pay attention to the contamination, and you can start to allow the contamination to heal and get cleared up by not relating to it as if it's reality. That's all. You know, that's what mind training is. That's what mind training simply means watch what's going on there. All right? And if what's going on there is a function, and this is where the teaching comes in, if what's going on there is a function of there being resistance and rejection of what's happening, that's stupid. It's happening. It's not going to stop happening because you don't like it. That's stupidity right there. It's stupidity. So stop being stupid. If you start paying attention to what's going on in the mind, when it's crazy, you can stay sane. And if you stay sane while it's crazy long enough, it'll get sane. And then there won't be any conflict at all. Just like life. Life is a game too. Same thing. Same thing. In life you can win and you can lose, right? Yeah, but if you think that's all there is, your life is not going to be a pretty picture. Yeah, you can keep moving and changing and adjusting, right? You can keep doing that until your body drops. But it's not going to make any difference. There's just going to be more shit to deal with. If you keep dealing with shit, there's just going to be more shit to deal with. That's the way it's going to go until your body drops. So you might as well get out of the whole thing. Let go of the whole thing. Just be here and experience being alive. It's a gas. It's a gas.